Oh, what's popping every episode? I have on the hello, John Maria that go over to plugin button badass in give a round. Welcome, John Marie Horvat.
What
Buddy,
it do?
how
What's
you
up
doing?
there, Kills? I'm blessed and highly favored. How are you?
So happy to meet you. I,
Thank you.
I seen that you're
Yes.
a better one, Godfather.
Oh man, stop. No, no, no. uh, you're too kind. Yeah, no, I'm the guy behind. I'm like the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the curtain. No one really knows me. I try to keep a low key. I'm not trying to front all the time.
Well, hey, we're gonna get into it today, and
Okay.
why don't we start with how you got into music? Like, was this something that you were a musician and you kind of transferred into the engineering side,
Wow.
family into this? Like, what inspired you to get into music?
Okay. Yeah, oof, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to give you the Reader Digest version or the synopsis of everything. I started in music because I stayed up late one night watching this TV program when I was about seven years old, and I saw Kiss for the first time, and it was on this thing called Don Kirshner's rock concert, and I said I want to do that. And then about I would say around 11, 12 years old, and I was always surrounded by music because the way I was living. I grew up in the projects in Jersey City, and then we moved into like the mid area of Jersey City, and then we moved to Bayonne. But I was always surrounded by music in the '70s. It's just like you were surrounded by culture with a lot of Middle Eastern music, a lot of Latin music. So I was always around it. And the biggest thing was, being a rock star at that time. And I got in the music industry because I wanted to meet more chicks. That's the God's honest reason. I just wanted to meet more girls in there, and it turned out to be a love and a profession. But I wasn't even supposed to be in music. My mother said to get a real job, so I went to college. And how I went to college was I was a cop before that. There's a big lineage to this thing. So the Hudson County the Hudson County paid for my education, but then I realized, I had long hair. I was in a rock band. It was like a soul metal group, and I didn't want to do anything else but music. And I wanted to do production. I didn't want to be in the band no more. I just wanted to do production, and that's how I got into the music industry.
Wow, that's that's so
Yeah.
amazing. It
Well,
sounds
that's the brief version of it. There's a whole different story to it, but that's the brief version of it.
it sounds like quite the journey to get there.
It was.
I I'm so intrigued. Like, can you tell us once you're into music? You said you were in a band and stuff. Like,
Hmm.
what influenced that switch into like production slash engineering? Was there maybe one specific
Yes.
experience? What was that?
Yeah. We were me, John Sciccherino. That was my bass player. Um, Michael LeBou was our drummer, and we were doing stuff uh, in a recording studio. And I was looking at the guy tinkering, not the engineer so much, but the producer was telling me what to do. And I'm like thinking, I said, how the hell is he hearing, how the hell is he hearing what I'm hearing in my head? And I said, well, I'm a producer. That's what I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to. I said, wait a minute. You're about 90 years old and you don't know what's happening right now. I could respect somebody of an age of an elk if they actually listen to the stuff and have children that listen to it. Then I'll respect them. And I said, you know what? I want to do this well into my years because I love music so much. I said, maybe I'll go into production. So I went to my guitar instructor and I said, dude, I think I'm going to switch over and become a producer. And Abel Dominguez, my guitar teacher, said, if you want to be a really good producer, you should learn how to engineer. And I said, look, I'll keep my mother happy. I'll go to school for audio engineering. I went to IAR. Uh, by the second term, by the second semester, which would be like in January, I found myself an internship and I never looked back. I never looked back. And then like 4 months later, I was working at Sigma Sound Studios. And that's when it really started happening. And I met Tony Maserati in July of June that same year. In October, I was assisting, and I met Teddy Riley that same October. And a year later, I was working on a very good record. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But yeah, that's how I got into it. It was a really much of a Cinderella story, really. To be quite honest with you, I was very very fortunate, and I'm still very fortunate.
That is amazing to. I
Thanks.
I'm very curious. Could you talk to us? Maybe you said you started assisting some other engineers. Like, what was that
Tony
experience like
Maserati.
back in the day?
Well, I was, I got to watch my words because I curse a lot, so I got to watch my words. I was a bit of an a-hole, right? But a funny a-hole. So I met Tony Maserati when I was working at Sigma Sound Studio because Tony was the assistant up there. And they said, goes, yeah, did you meet Tony Maserati? He goes, Tony Maserati. I said, is that his real name? I said, if he's Tony Maserati, I'm going to be Johnny Ferrari. And I said that loud, and he was coming out of the studio, and he thought that was so funny because I didn't really care. I cared about the people. I was more of a team player, and he realized that. And I was still doing like general assistant work, which is basically like a runner, and they call them GAs or they call them PAs sometimes. And Tony took a real liking to me, and I owe a lot to Tony. I owe a lot to Tony and to Teddy Riley. And Tony goes like this to, I guess it was the assistant manager at the time. They said, "Hey, we need you to come back." I said, "What's up?" He goes, "This you're assisting Tony Maserati." And I said, "Okay." So Tony goes like this, goes, "Don't touch anything." So I started touching everything around him when he turned his back because I saw you do that because he saw me in the mirror in the window right there. So I had a reflection. So I was messing around with him. And from then on out, he asked me, goes, "Do you know what this is? You know what that is?" And I really didn't. And I learned a lot. It was a Cheryl Pepsi Riley session with full force, actually.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is
it's like you'll never forget your first. It's like your first girlfriend. You'll never forget your first assisting job.
that's
So
legendary. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
So, tell us more. Teddy Riley is like the first major artist you start working, or what? How does that
Man,
happen?
no. So I was doing a full force session, and true to fact, Teddy thought I was an engineer because the way I handled myself. And I'm a guitar player, so I said, so Teddy, I didn't know that was Teddy Riley. I knew his name was Ted, and Teddy was playing the crap out of the B3. I said, brother, you're bad, right? And he's looking at me with this long hair, talking very urban, and I'm doing my tapping, and I go this and say, you're bad, man. And Tony Maserati goes up to me, he goes, do you know who that is? I said, yeah, his name is Ted. He's dope as shit. He goes, that's Teddy Riley. Yeah, man, that's his name, Teddy Riley. He goes, no, that's Teddy Riley. I won. I was like, no kidding. So I ran out again. I said, hey, man. I said, I didn't know you were Teddy Riley. I said, you're a bad motherfucker, man. I said, so he took a liking to me. And literally, he thought I was an engineer up until about 2.5, 3 weeks later. I had to go do a run. And I was talking to him. I said, oh, Teddy, I'll be right back. Because we were talking about music. And he said, goes, where you going? I said, I got to go do your run. You're in Studio A, so I got to get you your food. He looked at me weird. He said, okay. So I come back from Carnegie Deli, which is not there no more. And Mike Scalcione, the assistant, goes like this. He said, "Hey, man, they want you in Studio B." I was doing a practice session in there. That's how this all started. And he walked in, and Teddy was like this. He said, "He's back, huh?" He goes this. He played the mix. He said, "That's how I want my stuff to sound like," to an engineer, which I'm going to leave nameless. And he walked out. He said, he goes, "I'm going to hire you one day." I said, "Hire me for what?" 7 months later, he hired me to do the Michael Jackson stuff.
Wow,
So, yeah,
that
I'm a lucky
is
son of a gun. Yeah.
one hell of a story, man.
Yeah, there's more to that too, but I figure we only have a little bit, so I don't want to, wanted to give
Yeah.
it. It's like you work hard and you just be yourself. You don't try to live outside your means. You don't try to live outside of anything, because sometimes in our travels we tend to think that we have to be bigger than who we are, and if you just act who you are, you're gonna be more noticeable. I don't play that game. I don't play that Hollywood game. I'm from Jersey City. I came from nothing. I got more than most, but I did come from nothing. And I got something right now, and it's like music. It's still with me. This is what I asked for, and this is what I got. Be careful what you ask for. You might get it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I I know that you're one of the veterans in this industry. You're one of few who have made that transition from like tape all the way to modern day, probably.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
I'm you mentioned that you went on from working with Teddy to Michael Jackson. Maybe like get into a little bit of what you
Yeah.
did for him.
Well, that's a story in itself. So when Teddy hired me, um, how it happened was Teddy hired me 2 weeks after he heard my reference mix. Because Dave Way, another person I have to chalk up, Dave had to go to a wedding, and I had to do a song called "Let's Chill," and it was supposed to go on the new Jack City soundtrack for Keith Sweat. And we did that. Teddy wrote it with Bernard Bell the same day, and I never saw anything like that in my life. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And being in a band, you would write with your bandmates and do what you gotta do. I said, this guy single handedly just blew me away. I was so infatuated. I didn't know anything about MIDI, even though I went to audio engineering school. They really didn't tap into that, which kind of pisses me off, because I think young entrepreneurs are missing out of what I've learned and what they're missing. But that's a different thing. But we should talk about that. But when I saw Teddy perform, I was totally mesmerized. I didn't know what quantize was. I didn't know anything about anything. And so I'm watching him, and I'm learning. And this was the first day. He was supposed to come back in November, and he didn't. He went to Soundtracks. And then from Soundtracks, I heard that he got the Michael Jackson gig. And I said, wow, man, I wish he could have done it here. He went out to California, him and Dave, and the whole crew went up to California to write with Michael for like about 4 or 5 months. He came back in the summer. He came back in the spring of 1990, I think. Yeah, 1990. And he picked me up in May. And how it happened was he asked for me again, but not as an assistant. He asked me to be the engineer. I was scared. I didn't want to do it. And they said, no, we want Jean Marie. And I didn't know what the hidden motives were. So Teddy came back for me because he said he was going to hire me. And on Dave's recommendation, he said, you should really hire that guy, Jean Marie. He's a musician. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't know enough, but he knows enough to make it a sound that you want. So Teddy asked me, he said, what do you want? I said, well, I want to be a dope producer. He goes, what type of music? I said, doesn't matter. I just want to be all around like Quincy Jones. He said, because I tell you what, come work for me and I'll teach you how to be a dope producer. I said, all right. He goes, this, what the hell you want me to do? He goes, this, I want you to be my right hand. I want you to be my mixer. I want you to be my engineer. I said, I could do that. And that was it. And then the next thing I noticed, I put a 24-hour notice saying I quit. Went to soundtracks for about almost 3.5 weeks. We did the Dog Me Out remix. We did the Let's Stay Together remix. And then next thing we noticed, Teddy went to rehearsals for the Guy tour. he was really serious about me coming along, and he says, "I want you to come with us to Japan." He goes, "After Japan, we got to go to California. I need you with me because we're going to be doing the Michael stuff." I said, "Mike Jackson?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, shit, yeah, I'll do it. No, no problem." So during the day, we were rehearsing in Japan for the Guy show, and after that, we would spend another 8 to 12 hours of just doing Michael Jackson new material and production. When we got to LA, and this is where the Michael Jackson thing came in. Um, Teddy said, "Listen, you're going to be my tech because they don't want any more engineers on the record." I said, "All right." And so that night we went to see Bruce Sweeney, and I was geeked to meet him because I heard so much about him and being a Quincy fan, and everybody talked about him in the studio, so I fell along with it. I wasn't as geeked up to meet Michael. I knew Michael because I'm used to seeing stars at that time, so it didn't really phase me. But somebody that was monarch of this father of engineering, one of the fathers of engineering, he and I talked. He took a liking to me. He knew I was from Croatia and had a very European upbringing, and he's from Sweden, so we got along really, really well. Michael was the consummate, beautiful person as he is. He was such a kind man. Was such a kind man. Um, I said, okay. The next day, we started at 9 o'clock in the morning. Teddy said, "Be there at 9 because we have a 10 o'clock start." I said, "No problem." I set everything up. And then Teddy turned around. At that time, when Teddy would do productions, we would do, we had 2-inch machines and multiple 2-inch machines going at the same time. And this time, when Teddy would be writing, we would get the 2-inch machine and we would do slave reels, which is basically just a clone of certain things. But when we did that, um, Teddy liked the way I did it because I would pre-mix something to get a different feel. So I would mix the kick a certain way. So it was like almost like a quick mix, like a quick. I think that's why I'm so quick in doing it because I hear it and I just go for it. And the song was called Jam. And Teddy needed to put some stuff on Jam. And Renee Moore was one of the writers, producers on it. And he came down, he goes, "Who are you?" I said, I'm Jean-Marie Horvat. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm Teddy's engineer, Teddy's mixer. Why? What's going on?" He goes, "What you got?" I said, "Oh, I'm just doing a slave reel real quick because you're mixing it though." I said, "Yeah, I just want to make sure that it feels right." He says, "What?" He goes, "I want to make sure it feels right." He goes, "I've never heard anybody say it that way. Let me hear it." And I played it, and I'm like, when I mix, I move, I dance, right? I turn around, he's gone. And I went, "Oh no, I fucked up." The next thing I know is I see Bruce, Renee, Michael, and Teddy come down in Studio 2 at Larrabee, and Teddy had a smile on his face. He said, Bruce goes up, he goes, "Hey, why don't you play that for me?" And I played it, and I'm grooving to it. And Mike was right next to me, and then he goes, "Are you Italian?" So I said, "No, man, I'm Croatian." And he goes, "Okay, I've never been there, but I would like to go one day." And I think he did go like years later. But at that point in time, Michael, Teddy, and Bruce said, "Give him all the tapes, give him the room. He's redoing all the mixes." And that's how I got the job as a mixer on Michael stuff. Lucky. I'm just lucky.
That is, my mind is still. I'm trying to
Yeah, it's
process all of this.
team player. That's all I was gonna say. It was a team player because it wasn't about me doing the mix. It was doing something for the job to make my producer look better than wherever happens. And Teddy they gave me all the tapes. He said, "Go." I said, "Okay." I didn't. You said I could do anything. You could do whatever the hell you want. I said, "Okay," and that was it.
Okay, so I'd like to step back a little bit.
Okay.
Through your story, you've kind of mentioned how you were very fluid in playing different roles that
Yeah.
eventually got you to the engineering role.
Mm.
Could you maybe talk about like um how you apply that like currently, if that still applies to what you do? Because I'm sure.
It does. It's Here's the thing. When you're fearful for doing something, or you're over cocky, you're gonna rise and fall. Being a cop, you have to be confident. Being an investigator, being an uncover, you have to be confident, but also be fearful. And when you go into situations like working in the hip hop world or working in a country world or anything like that, that's something you haven't done before. You should be confident, but also fearful because you don't want to be like overly exuberant. And when I was doing the stuff for Teddy with the Michael stuff, I was confident because I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for the team. And that's what made it. And when I do work for everybody, I don't do it for me. I do it for the crowds. I do it for the fan base because I don't mix for myself. I mix for my 12-year-old daughter. I mix for my 19-year-old son. I don't mix for the label. I try not to. I don't care what the labels have to say. I do care about what the producer thinks. So in my philosophy, I don't mix like an engineer. I mix like a musician, but I first mix like a fan. What would the fans want? That's why there's a lot of ass in my shit. There's a lot of ass in my stuff. Because as a fan, I want that shit to move if I'm in the club. So
Definitely.
I use that everyday practice. Be fearful but not overconfident. There's a fine line. There's a fine line to that.
Wow. That's such a great philosophy to have too, because
Yeah.
I I can't tell you a lot of the engineers we've had come on here kind of general consensus like if you're the engineer, like watch your ass because the producer makes a lot of decisions, and if you go pissing people off, that's one way to really really quick.
Fuck that. Nah, man. It's like when people ask me to do stuff, back in the day, we were called boutique mixers.
Hmm.
Dave Pensado falls into that realm. Uh, uh, oh God, there was a guy that we used to use all the time. John Gass was another one. Tony Maserati. There was a lot of boutique guys, and when you come to me, you come for me for my sound, and I had a very distinguishing sound back then, and still to this day. A lot of people don't understand it because I don't go by the rules. I don't use plugins like if it was like a drop of water. I use different formats to get me. I might do three mixes on one song and people don't even know about it. And I send out the one I think I like. I might do one in Logic. I might do the same one in Pro Tools, and I wave out which one sounds better because I don't care. I want the best because my name's on it. And the one thing that you have to understand is that people have a tendency to think that one way is always the right way. It's not. It's never that case. It's there's ways to get down to the road. If you want to put a staple on your stuff, dare to be different. If you ever see anything on my posts, I say dare to be different. Hell, I just finished doing my production on country trap. It was supposed to be a joke, and people love it. It's hilarious. It's fun, and I did trap metal because it's fun because it should be fun. It's like people take this shit way too serious, man. This is music. And that's what people don't understand. I think sometimes mixers and engineers get above themselves. I just had a discussion with Dave Way about a week ago. We were at the Sony 360 Real Audio thing because we're getting into that world. That fascinates me. Because my I wish I could send you to my studio. I like to be around music. I don't like to. I left the big studios is because I don't want my clients to get overcharged because some of them don't have the money. And it started on the Robin Thicke record because we were working at Babyface's studio and the mixes came out better up at Robin's place, and it was nothing. So I took that philosophy and brought it. Say, well, you know what? I'm going to make my own studio, and I wanted to feel it. It was actually supposed to be a production room, and it turned out to be one of the main mix rooms. I did all the Ty Dolla Sign stuff. That's why it stuck, and it's an SSL board. It's like, but it doesn't matter. The biggest thing is that if you have this and you have this and you have the imagination, you can do anything. I think people are saying like the first thing that people always ask me, what plugin do you use? What plugin do you use? It's like I ask the same question, like, what do you use? And then I would retort and say, well, it depends. You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes you don't need all plugins. Sometimes you don't have to fix something. Sometimes it needs a little enhancement. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Teddy taught me to take what I learned from Virginia Beach and bring it into the forefront. I'm not a mirror image of Teddy Riley. I'll never be a mirror image of Teddy, but I'm one of his better reflections that came out of Virginia Beach.
Wow. I I hope you know how many gems you just dropped. I'm gonna cue the sound effect. Man, amazing. You mentioned quite a few of the artists that you've worked with, but that is just a small list compared to the long list of people.
Mhm.
Something else you mentioned is that specifically your records have a lot of ass in them.
Yes.
And one of my personal favorites that I think is a prime example would be Power Glide by Ray Shremmerd.
Well,
Could you
that's my production.
could you
I
talk to us?
I wrote and produced that.
Right. So you crossed a few bridges simultaneously there. I
Mhm.
seen you were a co-writer, the producer, and the mix engineer on that.
Actually, I only mixed the reference.
Mm,
Jason Joshua mixed the one that people heard on the radio, but there's like two different versions. The one that we sent out to the video that Sway Lee liked because we needed to get it out. That's the reason why. But mostly it was Jason and Mike Will, which I never met Mike Will. I would love to meet him one day.
amazing.
It, yeah, that was an interesting one because that's when I just met Molly Mall. And Molly Mall found out from this other writer, producer, engineer. Um, he said, "You know, John Marie's the writer producer, right? He's been ghost producing for like almost 20 years." And Molly said, "Do you write?" He goes, "Yeah, I just do ghost." I goes, "You shouldn't ghost." He called me up one day. He said, "Listen, I need this type of vibe." I said, "Look, only if I could do it my way, because I'm not trying to copy anybody's production." I think one of the things at that time was everybody wanted a Metro Boomin track. And I think Metro Boomin is a genius. I think he's a flat out genius. I can't wait to meet that brother and just shake his hand. But I told him, people say, "Yo, we want a Metro Boomin production." I said, "Hold on one second. Here's his number. Call him up." Literally, don't ask me to do a Metro Boomin track. Don't. Because that's the problem. Because everybody, and so when I did Powerglide, it didn't sound like anything that came out that time. The production didn't sound the same. It didn't sound like supposedly uh, the side to side thing. It was emulated to side, but I flipped everything around. That didn't even have that. That was another. That was, oh god, that was terrible. They're saying that we sampled it. That's like, there's no fucking way we sampled that shit. So, needless to say, when we got it, Molly Mall said, "Who did the string arrangements?" I said, "I did." He said, "Bro, that sounds amazing." He goes, "Where'd you get these sounds from?" I said, "I just made them." He said, "When did you make them?" I said, "Well, I collected them when I used to, when I was bored." And a great buddy of mine, Dave Kutch, a mastering guy, mastering engineer, he mastered my sounds because I wanted a cacophony of sounds, but I also wanted some direct hits, but not, it doesn't sound like everybody's stuff, which was basically the Fruity Loop sound. So that's why Sway Lee liked it so much, because it sounded different. And the bottom end was different. That's when I started experimenting with four different 808s. It was hilarious. It was just fun. It was just it was just so much fun.
Man, such an amazing song. That's iconic to me. I was in like high
Thanks,
school when
bro.
that song came out, so
Wow.
that's like that was really the first big song anybody knew of Ray Shrem, at least from my.
Wow.
So super amazing. Um,
Thanks, man.
I have like a long list here in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of backtrack a little, um,
Mm.
into the R&B world. You go back all the way to like Genuine, and
Hmm.
you did a whole album for him. I mean, honestly, you did the majority of his biggest songs, right?
Yeah, I did. Yep,
Could,
I did.
could you maybe talk
Diff-
to us a little bit about the transition into the R&B world and how that might be different than like some of the new school stuff you're doing?
There isn't. There isn't that much of a difference.
Mm.
It's like if you have a pulse in your vein, you can adapt and overcome. You know what I'm saying? The album that Genuine did, it was a very that was in a very emotional time for him. He lost his I think he lost his father and mother roughly at the same time, and he pulled up to the session. His manager at the time was Jerry Vines. He was like saying, "Go, Jean, I need you to pull something out of this." You know, there was some great producers on it. Lauren Dawson, Troy Oliver. There was some great producers on that. Brian, that's how I met Brian Michael Cox off of that record. And the biggest thing was, how the hell did you get the vocals to sound a certain way? And we did that in Sony Studios at that time in Studio C. And when G came in, he just was like, it superseded anything. Mind you, they told me I didn't have that much of a reference to go by. And I pulled out a rabbit out, like the kicks came in out. It's like they let me do my thing. A lot of times now, what's different with the new school stuff is they won't let me do my thing because of the references that people have been listening to, and demoitis they call it. So I had came up with a trick to captivate and cultivate that type of tone that I started with, and without being disrespectful to anybody involved. So I came up with stuff. So you always have to adapt and overcome. And that one thing is that I stay true to what my beliefs are as a musician, as a producer, not as a mixer. Mixer's the last thing on the list. The mixer comes out when I have to drop it and send it to mastering, where I have to be persnickety about what I send out to the labels and to the mastering guy. But for the majority of thing is that how the hell, and it takes a minute. You have to almost lose your ego but gain your confidence at the same time. Like, okay, no, fuck that. I'm going to make this kick go this way. Say, oh, there's it. Oh, I didn't feel that. And all of a sudden, they hear this background vocal just like swarm up on you, like a condor flying in. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want. I want my music to be hugged, not just like kick and snare. Because I see a lot of times where I hear uh, from younger mixers, because they haven't experienced what I have. That's why I love one day to just get into people's minds. Is that music is three dimensional, not just a kick and snare. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I try to tell people to try to, Pro Tools is not the be all of end all of mixing. Neither is Logic, neither is Nuendo, neither is Cubase, neither is Fruity Loops. Everybody said, "Oh, we're gonna make a hit record. You gotta use Fruity Loops." No, you don't. This Power Glide was done on Machina, and
Wow.
people are saying what? And then I brought it into Logic and chop it up because it was quick for me to do it that way. And it's like people don't realize if you have a pulse in your vein, you have the heart and you have the ear and the imagination, you can use anything. Frick, you can use, anything. Anything. You can use a friggin' phone. Was that guy, the guy from the internet. He made some beats. He was doing this shit off of GarageBand. I mean, he didn't use Fruity Loops. Was it Stig something? I forgot his name. But the guy's bad. Come on.
Man, so amazing to hear that, especially somebody like you, because a lot of people get caught up with, is it the gear, is it the ear, combination of both. I think it really comes down to, once you have the ear, then the gear only kind of matters.
A lot of people say, the analog stuff, the analog stuff, the analog stuff. Well, I already played with analog. Do I miss it? Yes. What should it come back? I don't know. Can I do an analog tape? Yes. Here's my problem with that. The formula is not the same. It's a different time. When people start using the console, it's a different time. The headroom or the console really, it starts peaking everything out and it makes it sound like shit sometimes. So you have to gain stage your audio interface to match up what a console would prefer. And mind you, the loudest that we ever got it was at +9. We're using tape. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of started understanding that when I started working outside. and I started working at my studio up in Valencia at that time. It was just like I called it like almost like a clubhouse, basically. And I did something for Troy Taylor. It was "Say Ah" for Trey Songz. And when people found out how I did it, they lost their mind because I did it on a digital Mackie board. I didn't use the EQs. I just used the digital conversion. And there's a difference of digital seeing digital because it has the maximum headroom for that. Analog, it starts clipping and it starts messing with the tone. And at that time, people were doing like without you calling it in the box mixes, they would just do a quick ref, and they would use that, and you can hear the difference. There's a difference in tone when it came out of Pro Tools 1 and 2 versus to bringing it out analog, and they call it sounded too clean because it was all spread out. So I came up with the philosophy of like, okay, how can I make this better, and how can I make it my own? And that's what I've been doing for like the last 15 years. Is like making digital sound like analog without discouraging that.
Man, amazing, crazy.
Like,
Why why don't we transition into maybe a little bit of um some plugin sauce or gear sauce? Since you mentioned
okay,
making the digital
yeah.
sound like some um
Hmm.
could you maybe give us something that you use on your vocals pretty often?
Oh,
That could be a compressor, that could be a saturation, that
oh,
could be
I'll I'll give you my whole sauce. I'll give you one. I'll give you all my sauce except for one thing because it can be interchanged. Okay. Here it is. Okay. So I start off with a C4 and two C4s, and it's like almost like compressing and de-essing at the same time. It's cleaning up the digital schmutz, as I call it. And then I choose the compressor, which I totally love this compressing company. It's a great friend of mine. He's the guy who invented distressors. I use the arouser. I use that at 4 to 1 compression ratio. It's a good medium. It's a good balance. Um, the trick of that is what people don't understand is that you don't you vary it. So a lot of people have a tendency to like, okay, it's squashing this way. Well, I got to back down the compression ratio. Just back down the input. Just back down the input. As you back down the input, you raise the output. Very simple. All right. So now that's the other part, right? Here's where it gets to be kind of cool. I like to have commitments per se. I used to listen to a lot of great albums, and they would commit. They didn't have uh, a lot of reverbs back then, so they would commit the reverb to tape. You know that, right? So it's like I listened to uh, Bohemian Rhapsody. It was somebody had it, and they baked it and they transferred it over digitally, and you raised the faders up, and the damn thing was mixed. It was like, so they printed all that sound. So I used that concept, but instead of printing it, I would put an insert in, like because we have multiple inserts for that. So I have a fascination with delays and reverb. So take your choice. Make sure you have a little smack, not too much. And then the last thing I do is a width. I use an H3000 sometimes, or I use the micro shift to just give it a little bit of width on the lead vocal, and that's it. And I pick and choose my reverbs. I love this. I love Slate Audio's Bricasti setting. D Miles is a great producer friend of mine. He is the Quincy Jones of our time. I don't care what anybody says. Um, he turned me on to this thing called something skies, sparkling skies or something like that. I forgot. I've been using it for like the last year and a half now. It's such an amazing thing. It's just like the trickle effect, but you put it in the background so it fills it. Remember, reverb's supposed to be felt. I don't know when the hell everybody started putting reverb all over the damn place. I guess they just had a bad setting and it worked on somebody. It's like I don't like a lot of reverb on my shit, but I do to a certain point. So I have to have almost like on one lead vocal, I probably have maybe about 6 reverbs, just four different sends and 2 different settings on the insert.
wow. Blown my mind right here.
There you go. It's trial and error. That's all it is. Trial and error.
Um, I was curious. There's one specific song that's very popular. So by Ti and Justin Timberlake. It's called "Dead and Gone."
Yes.
Um, could you talk about how you maybe applied the tools to that song? Were plugins really that developed then? Like how was that?
No. No. That was done in Dead and Gone was done at Henson Studios in the mix room, and that was done on the console. There's a big difference in sound,
Right.
and that's when I started gain staging, and then we used Pro Tools as a tape machine, and we brought it back up. I used my all my stuff from Waves, um, just to clean everything up, and we transferred it over. Me and Paul Foley. Paul Foley was the Pro Tools engineer on that one, and also the engineer. And we kind of discussed a few things how we're going to attack it. And Justin's a genius, and Rob Knox is another genius. So both of those two guys in the room. Justin wanted to make the pop setting, but not a lot of reverb. And I always wanted Ti to be right up in your grill, and like he's almost touching the speaker cone. And Rob just wanted his drums to hit. There's one thing that me and Rob wish we did do was bring up the snare more on that one.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Now I'm gonna
yeah,
go listen for the snare.
yeah, yeah. I think it was a little faint. I think I could have put a better knock on it, but I think Justin wanted it that way. So
Mm.
you can't. I'm not gonna mess with a guy that's like an icon in our music industry. So
Mhm.
it's like, go with what we know.
Yeah, amazing. My mentor is like is engineer oftentimes.
Chris Gabby.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
Oh
I love
yeah.
him.
Chri-
Oh, tell him I said hi, man. I love him.
I
I
will.
love him
Chris
to
is
death.
one of my good friends. Super
Oh my
awesome.
God,
Taught me a shit ton. Uh,
sweetest man ever. He's such a sweet guy. I love him to death.
that's amazing, man. Awesome. I've actually had him on the show. He was episode 4, I believe.
Wow,
Um,
wow. Tell him I'm on 9.
hey, I wanted to touch on maybe just a couple more songs, and then I want to get into
Yeah.
maybe a little shootout on some more plug-in gear sauce.
Okay.
There's one particular Destiny's Child song which I think everybody in the world
Say
called
my name.
"Say My Name." Could you tell us what that was like, and also like what the main differences in working in the studio back then versus if you were in a Destiny's Child session today would have.
Nothing different. Uh, that was done in uh, Pacific Studios. It was on right the right hand side of the studio, and that was the first time that me and Harvey Mason Jr. decided to it as use Pro Tools with the console at the same time. And the J board had a discrepancy in frame rate, so the cuts weren't right. But we used the majority of the console, so we used that as basically as a tape machine, and that's how we did "Say My Name." All the reverbs came out. Um, First and foremost, Beyonce is as dope as she is. There's hardly you can't fuck that song up. You can't. I mean, she's just amazing. She's so amazing. She's so I mean, the vocal is just like butter, and she was on point. LaShawn Daniels, God rest his soul, produced the hell out of that vocal. Um, and Rodney, at that time, said, "John, we need to do this mix," and sure enough, we did. And the difference back then and the difference now is not that much difference. It's just that which now we're in the box versus on stretch of the console, and they just leave us alone. Mixers are always left alone. Very rarely we would see the artist in the room. Even back then, um, unless it was like Mark Anthony or an engine or a producer that is actually an artist. You know what I'm saying? It was very very different back then. We didn't really ever see anybody except for the A&R. And the A&R didn't come to that either. We just said it and forget it and went on our way.
Wow.
So it's not that much of a difference, but that one was actually all done on the console as well. But that was the first time Harvey and I had a discussion on it. Harvey Mason Jr. He's that dude's incredible. That dude has a story and a half. You know, he was supposed to be a pro basketball player.
No way.
Yep. And he
That's
blew out his
wild.
and he blew out his knee and he took his second love, which was music, and he made a killing. You know, he's the guy. Truth to be told, this is from what I heard. He's the guy who really originated the share effect. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, bring that up. If we can get him on the show, man, bring him up. But Harvey was Harvey was the original person that really turned all of us onto Pro Tools, and he did it, and he did it well. He was fast as hell. He was a monarch on that. I mean, I'm telling you, that was Dark Child production was, Rodney, Freddie, LaShawn, and then Harvey came in towards the end, and Harvey really shook things up. He was gifted, man. He's a bad dude, man. Bad cat. Great businessman, but man, he knows that shit really inside and out.
Wow.
Yeah, so he said he goes, he gave me a nickname called Beefy. He said beef because we always used to work out. Yes, I used to work out, y'all. None of this fatness right now. Before I was young and there we go, and hair too. So we would work out, and he said, "Hey Beefy, well, let's try to put this. Let's use this as a tape machine. You want to give it a shot?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" And I was never scared to say, "Yeah, why not?" You know what I'm saying? Like even the Beyonce live records, I actually physically took apart my room and got Ozzy at that time. We used to work for Euphonics, and I brought a whole Fusion console at the studio, and everybody thought I was nuts. I never did a 5-1 mix before, and everybody said, "Yo, this shit sounds amazing." It was awesome. So I would never say no to anything. Never. I figure it out.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
uh, on the never saying no to anybody, could you maybe expand? Does that involve you reaching out to a network of resources you have? Does that involve you going on Google and figuring it out yourself? Like, how do you approach learning something you
Sometimes if I'm trying to figure out a command that I can't figure out, either in Nuendo, Logic, or Pro Tools or anything like that, that's when I look at it. But for mostly, I try to dumb it down to somebody that doesn't know what the hell's going on, and I start poking and I start looking at lists. What does this do? What does that do? What does this do? And that's how I do it. I like to feel things around. It's almost like a mechanic, It's like you go to school for it, but there's a feel that you have to have. You have to get in there and tinker it around. It's like,
really?
it's like, when you're going out on a date, it's like, do you take them to McDonald's, take it In and Out, or do you take it to a classy restaurant? You got to feel everything out.
Right. Right. Wow. So amazing. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks.
much. You've
Yeah,
shared so
anytime.
many amazing gems with us. I feel like we could talk for days and days and days about it.
Hmm.
I I do want to move into the plugin and gear talk because
Okay.
we're approaching the next segment of the show. Um,
Okay.
I'm curious if
Mm.
you had one EQ for the rest of the next 10 years, what would it be?
Right now,
Right now. Yep.
I'm thinking the Kit BB105 version 2.
Mm,
That Neve that Neve plugin is really, really unique. And I already have 1081s, so like I have my racks of 1081s at the studio. Um, I like that one a lot. That's one plugin that I highly suggest that people get. It's pretty awesome. It doesn't have the synthetic top end that sometimes plugins do. It has a real nice sheen to it. Um, I can't say because I don't have it in front of me. It sounds like the Blackbird's console, but if Blackbird had a console that sounds like that, shit. I mean, that's a really good one. Uh, if I had another choice, if that wasn't available for me, oh God, there's so many plugin companies out. I would have to say, literally, you're gonna like this one. Fab Filter Saturn.
Really?
Fab Filter Saturn. Trust me on that one. That's a good one. And if there was one other thing, I I do endorse this new thing that's coming out from Waves, and I have my plugin settings there. Waves has a new SSL EQ, and I like that one a lot. But also anything from Plugin Alliance, anything from them, anything from them. They're amazing. I mean, I've never heard I've never really worked on a 9098 console, but that 9099 plugin, amazing. I did work on a V board and the VX board, amazing. The SSL EQ sounds amazing. The I'm not a big J board fan or K board fan really per se because it kind of crimps a little bit, but that E series EQ or the G series EQ sounds great. Um, but there's so many different plugins. I mean, you could do so much with EQs now that even if you just have Fab Filter, which I use the majority of the time, you can use the EQ3, which is an amazing plugin, an amazing EQ. It does more than what it's supposed to do. It's fantastic on like surgical stuff. It's amazing, you know. But there's a lot of stuff that because of the COVID year, I really honestly that's how I got into learning more about plugins because I had time to mess around with stuff because I was doing a lot more writing and production. And I said, you know what, let me just like pull up an old mix, start from scratch. And I'm only going to work with this one plugin company and see what I come up with. And then I'm only going to work with this one plugin company. And that's all I'm going to work with. And that's how I started figuring out new shit from plugin alliance, from Waves. I've been a Waves guy ever since they put me on in 97. That's how long I've been using Waves. Yeah. So I know that plugin company inside and out, but I didn't know a lot of it. So I had to go relearn everything and just take my time and really start understanding what I can use, what type of soundscapes that I use. But then the other thing is also it's like I also like to do soundscapes and different type of things into the mix and start really trying to matriculate the essence of the feel of the song because anybody can people I think Mishka said it best, this writer producer friend of mine. He says it's not about your kicks and snare, that's apparent. It's about how you place everything around your kicks and snares. That's where I'm fascinated because he actually sat down with me in the back and watched how it worked, and he was like, I can't believe you did this. I've been through a lot of sessions. You're the only engineer that does this and it sounds friggin' amazing. And I said, thank you. And it's like I only get better. I think I'm better than yesterday. Well, yesterday was a really good day. So now I got to be better than what I did yesterday. So I don't really sit on, I don't use the same settings. I try to go from scratch. Everybody has plugin settings, plugin templates. And I feel that I'm confident. I should say I'm confident enough to say, let's start from scratch. I'm confident to go like this. I say, okay, I'll listen down to the session. And then I just say, I want all the plugins off. And then I start listening. I said, I think they were rushing this, so we don't have to put that plugin on. And you start picking and choosing. Understand you're there for a reason, and you're there to make a hit record. And sometimes they just do it quickly, or the assistant or the vocal engineer put a quick 1-2 on it. You know, so you have to enhance it. That goes back to like the differences, like you know, how do we take our ego out of it and you know people have the demoitis type thing, you know, so it's like you have to really take in consideration what you can do and what you can't do, but you also have to understand like let's listen to it. Maybe he was in a bad studio, maybe maybe they're not hearing it right. And because a lot 9 out of 10 times that when people start listening to like self-powered speakers, they're not really getting real low end. So by the time my mix comes to them and say, "Oh, it's too low. It's just too much low end," dude, you got pair of polypropylene speakers that is enhancing the low end. Get you go. You know, it's like they don't. No one knows how to listen anymore. Really, no one knows how to listen. The only person that kind of figured that out was uh oh god was Ty Dolla Sign. he figured it out. He said, "Dude, you don't mix like normal people mix." And I said, "No." And I take that to great pride. He's still my friend. I love him to death. We still work together. So it's something.
Man, that's so important too. I think one of my biggest struggles when I was an early engineer, and people they'd be like, "Yeah, man, the 808's just not hitting right." I'd be like, "What? What are you listening to it on?" Like my iPhone. I'm like, "Your iPhone?" Like, and they're like, "Well, I hear other songs 808s, but granted, every 808's different. If you have a very subby 808, no matter how much saturation you put, there's only a certain amount that's gonna show up on the wrong
Yeah,
playback device."
yeah. And sometimes when you get like sessions that already have those plugins on it, they sound differently. They sound so different, like compared to when you open up your session. It's like this doesn't sound like what they sent me. So you have to almost pick and choose what's going on. And the 808 world, it's very here's a trick, y'all. Here's a trick. I'm gonna give you a nugget. The easiest thing to do is get a knock on an 808. You want to know how to do it? You duplicate it, you take off all the low end, smash the compressor on it, and that acts like a kick drum. You smooth it up to a parallel to the sub, and there's your 808. There it is. And to put one more thing on it, put a little distortion on it so it gets that cut in there. So it sounds like a kick drum because all you do is overtone. There's a little nugget there for you.
Hmm.
There's a little nugget there for you. That
You,
that is because a lot of people do normally do that, but also, you know, a lot of times they just use a two-track mix of their, when they hear, like I've heard a lot of times that um, the mixes that we hear is just basically what came out of the studio, and that's a great thing. But you can't compare the two if you start mixing the stuff, and that's the problem where you know there's no quality control no more. And I feel that artists should be demanding quality control. I don't think anybody should get a reference mix anymore or a rough track of it. They need to get rid of it, because my fans are gonna hear this. It's like your friggin' fans haven't even heard the damn song yet. What the hell are you talking about? It's like they goes like there's this one producer that says, "Well, my feel that my sound has to be a certain way," and it's like, I was talking to a good friend of mine. And it's like sometimes producers they get into their own world and they don't care if the song sounds like shit. It's gonna be a shit song no matter who mixes it. Think about, is the song great? You know what I'm saying? And don't worry about the kick and snare. Oh, everybody's gonna love my song because of the kick and snare. No, they're not. They're gonna love it because they love the song, and they're gonna love it because it came from you, not no damn kick or snare. The one thing about, like I bring up Metro Boomin again. The one thing about Metro Boomin that made him so special is he made that 808 his instrument, and it's most amazing. He's probably one of the best at it. No one can touch him, and no one should touch him. That's his signature, and that's his sound. You know what I'm saying? He makes his shit sound amazing.
absolutely.
You know, it's like people try to follow. Instead of imitate or emulate, why don't you just build something? Initiate a new sound. That's the one thing I kind of miss when I first started. There was so many great producers, and vast amounts of cacophony of production, and that's why we had so many catalog songs back then. Now it's just like you got 18,000 people on one song because they said they wrote a breath on it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. When we did Powerglide, it was just me and Molly Mall did it. By the end of the day, it was like 18 other people on there that had nothing to do with it.
Wow. I I'm curious. Um, how do you foresee a project that you invested a lot of time,
Hmm.
like once it's left your hands? How do you deal with something?
Oh,
The release date you don't know. Label might be on some bullshit and dropping it. What do you
it's
do?
out of my hands. It's out of my hands. It's out of my hands. The only person that I have control of is with the artist I'm working with right now. Alexa, and she and I talk about things all the time. And she's my partner. She's not my artist. I work with her, not for her. She doesn't work for me. She works with me. And I think a lot of times we're in a better place right now because artists can just drop their shit and not really worry about certain things. Um, I don't know what the course of action is going to be in the next 5, 10 years, but I know where I want my structure to be. I learn from other people's mistakes. That's why I tell people my mistakes so they can learn from it. Um, I just think that, collectively it's the marketing and also the time zone. And also, is the song good enough? Because they're more concerned. Here's the thing that with songs. What was hot 6 months ago is not going to be hot now. That's how it is right now. It's more fast food. There's no lineage of an album. It's just like single, 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 single. So you have to think that way. You have to think that when you're making an album now, you got to think every song has to be a single. That's it. And I think that's what the labels want. That's what we're trying to do right now with Alexa. Um, it's more based upon neoclassic soul, so it's easy to write more that. And she writes differently because we could have, she could have done what everybody else has been saying or doing, and she won't do that. And she's a friggin' ex. She's an ex pro surfer, so she has a different lifestyle. And I think that's what we're missing is people's lifestyles, and that's what people want to see more. They want to see people's lifestyles.
Definitely,
Yeah,
most definitely, man. I think that tends to be a big part of it too. Like everybody comes to the studio and they post about being in the studio, but they forget to put the lifestyle into the actual music in the studio.
yeah. I think a lot of times artists feel that they're afraid to leak their stuff out. Leak it out. Just not even leak it out. Just let them be a part of it. Let them see what it feels like to be in a recording studio. A lot of times that people say, do you work late at night still? I said no. I'd rather go hang out at night. It's like there ain't nothing sexy about being in the studio at 4 o'clock in the morning. There's nothing sexy about that. But
Facts.
sometimes people tend to forget that the only reason why people worked late at night is that was the cheapest hours that they can get. That's why they did it. And kind of Teddy turned me on to that. Like when we're doing the Michael stuff, Bruce would work till 6 o'clock in the evening. That's it. I went, I'm used to working till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe not getting in time. You know what I'm saying? So when I started doing that more often, it was actually amazing. Actually, Fabian, I love that kid. He's an amazing mixer and he's a great human being. God, he started mixing at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's done with everything. And his concept was amazing. He made sure that his European clients got their stuff. He made sure that the LA clients got their stuff. He's working he's done. And it's like you'd be surprised what you can do because you don't need to because your ears start falling off around 8 o'clock because you've been hearing stuff all sing every day. The best that you can hear is right when you wake up. That's the best one you can hear
Mm.
after you log and start. Like it's almost like a singer. A singer would have to talk or do their exercises almost an hour or two before they could start singing. That's a really good singer. It's the same thing as engineers. Like when you're listening, you're opening up your ears have been just settled in. You haven't listened to anything for like between 4 to 6 hours, depending on how long you sleep. So your ears are ready to go. They're fired up, ready to go, and then you start abusing them. It's like, and then you have to take a lot of breaks. I still tell this to people. Um, Funny thing, I was working at a studio, and they turned around and they said, they said, "Yo, man, Jamri's not mixing." He goes, "He's listening to the damn TV all the time." And my assistant Zach at that time at the boom room goes this. He said, "You don't understand what he's doing." So, what I used to do is I used to pipe the um, the TV inside the console, and that's how I get the vocal levels right. Because if you notice on TV, the commercial is like X amount louder,
Yeah.
that's the frequency I wanted to get because I'm trying to sell a product. And when I
Wow.
did that, people was like, holy shit. And that's when I started doing a lot of vocals. I did that on a lot of the Joe stuff. And people were saying, yo, how the hell did you get that vocal to sound that way? I piped in the stuff. I wanted to make sure that the commercial that I heard correlates to that frequency. It's a
Wow.
broadcast. So so I have some great stuff. But the best thing is that step away from it and don't worry about a kick drum so much. If you spend more than an hour on a kick drum, that's an hour wasted. Then your ears are so damn fatigued. That's the biggest thing I could tell people is that you gotta step away from it. I think Bruce Swedien said it best. He said 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. What the hell does that mean? Like the big speakers? So I took that concept, work for about a half an hour, step away from it. Just like 5 minutes. Just take an ear break, take a look at stuff. Break down the mixes, listen to the vocals, solo, listen to the music, solo, listen to the kick and snare. So oh shit, I can fix that kick drum now. Because your ear is like getting the fatigue away.
Wow. Man,
Gems.
the
Gems.
huge gems. That's crazy. That is a cheat code, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, I wanted to move on to one last topic before we get into our Q&A / giveaway, and that is
Okay.
you are a big advocate for the engineer community. You're
Yes.
you're doing a lot of things that are really the pioneering of like the voice for us. So could
I
we
try.
could we maybe discuss like what what your objective is, or like what kind of mission you're on with that, and how people might be able to get involved to help the movement?
Um, I think right now, I mean, because you have Meek Mill's guy Cruz getting a lot of respect because he's there in the room. And me and Cruz talked about this a while ago because he said, Jean, you were with Teddy that way. I said, I did everything for Teddy. I was the assistant, I was the engineer, I was the production coordinator, I was everything, right? I think at some point, um, I would like to see the entitled stuff, like more credits to be seen. Like there should be when you open up something like there's a great record that's out right now. It's a rock record called Dirty Honey. That whole album, I wanted to know who the guy did that. How the hell do we find out? We need to capitalize. Like liner notes is very important to us, and also understand the engineer's worth. I'm sick and tired of seeing $20 engineers working their bones off and not getting the desserts. I think there has to be a justification that if you're going to use an engineer, you have to start paying them the proper wages. $500 a day for a block out is low, but I think the art of that is being missed. Um, and we can get into that. We can get into that as well because I stepped out of that and started doing a tracking session for a friend of mine, and it was the most amazing experience. But also teaching, educating, telling them how you can be more important. Um, what do you need to have? What school you should go to? Those sorts of information. How can you better, man? Like someone had the audacity to tell me that they were actually going to put an engineer tag on there and said, "How dare you? You're not that dope, okay? You're not that important. Just because you're moving shit around doesn't make you that important. That's an engineer's job, or I'm doing the producer's job. You're cutting it real close to that. You got to know your place." And trust me, I understand that engineers do a lot, and I do the same thing. Like I got pissed off today. I had to sequence the goddamn thing because they chopped up a 2-track. That's a producer's job. That's my job to say, look, it ain't gonna happen. If that's the case, then you better start giving me some extra dough. That's where I'm trying to advocate. How engineers they need to start educating. I'm trying to build a forum that you guys never touch tape. but that doesn't mean that doesn't teach you how to cut vocals differently. And I'm never going to teach anybody how to mix, but I can teach you how to hear differently. And that took me a long time to understand that. Even when I got in there, I started to get really confident about my ideas. And mind you, I was working with Teddy Riley, one of the biggest producers in the world. I didn't get confident until I worked with Babyface. That's when I got confident. That's when I knew, I said, I can do this. When I taken my philosophy and bringing it to fruition, because we're egomaniacs a lot of times. Engineers are egomaniacs. Like, they're fighting for a position. And it's not all about that. It's not about the big records. It's about the records that haven't been done yet. That's the most important thing. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, I want to be like this engineer." Why? Well, he got all that money. If you're doing it for the fucking money, get the fuck out of the business, because you're fucking up the gene pool. We're trying to make great records. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm rich not because of the wealth. I'm rich because I'm doing something that I love to do. Yeah, I make money. That's okay. But as fast as you make it, the IRS takes it away. All right, let's just get that done. But what you're doing is you're enriching your life. You're doing something that people want to do. I got guys that make millions of dollars and they're working at the stock exchange and they hate life. I love my life. I get up every morning, listen to music. That's the most important thing. If you could get past that, you're going to get paid.
I don't know exactly what happened. May have had his phone die. Oh, we're back.
Sorry about that.
All good. I
Sorry
thought
about
maybe
that.
your phone might have died, but
No, no, I know somebody was calling me in.
all good.
um, but where do I leave? So, oh yeah. So I think to help change this is that we as engineers have to, well, okay, the mixing, stop being a mixer and start being an engineer, because that's how I became a better mixer, is becoming a really good engineer and start understanding how sounds work. Just because you cut vocals doesn't mean that you're a good vocal cutter, because we talked about Chris Gabby. Chris Gabby is probably one of the best vocal cutters I've ever met, next to Paul Foley. Um, and amongst some other people, Bill Molina too. But there's a finesse. Have you ever tried to get your own microphone? Have you ever tried to invest in yourself and stop worrying about what the studio? So one thing I did when I started working was I started buying gear, not buying a Ferrari or a Corvette or a Mercedes. I bought gear with my money. And that's when I started buying microphones. Now, what happens if I go at this? Okay, so I'm working with the next hottest artist, and you come in with your laptop, your mic pre, your DAW, and 4 microphones. You're worth something. That's what I'm trying to change. When an engineer walks in and say, "Oh shit, yeah, you're gonna be paying for that. You're gonna be paying 75 to $125 an hour because I came prepared." Yo, that mic doesn't sound good to you. That doesn't sound right. But you have to be honest. You have to understand where it needs to go, and that's what I'm trying to do. It's to try to really manifest a business for engineers, not just trying to pull credits and not trying to be producers, because a lot of time engineers come in there to be a producer. I got into engineering because I wanted to be a producer, and I found money. Teddy said the first thing, he said, "You're going to be known for your mixing." And I said, how the hell did this guy know that? He just knew. He just knew, because I came from a different setting. I didn't do everything that everybody did. I did just the opposite. Dave Pensado said it best. He goes, Jean-Marie Horvat is the father of parallel and bus compression. That's what he said. Because I didn't have all the gear down in Virginia Beach. That's how I got my sound. But that's where the engineering hat came in. How can I make something sound bigger than what it was? So I would do all this stuff. And we had a 6000 E series down in Virginia Beach. So we had an A, B, C bus. So I would do a lot of shit to make it sound right. And a lot of people didn't do that. And especially when the J board came out, I was so mad when the J board came out because yeah, it sounded clean, but it was too brittle. So working with Rodney Jerkins, doing Say My Name, I came up with the ABCD bus. So I would do mastering within the mix. I would never put a compressor on my back end of the mix. I would do it within the mix, and that's how I did parallel compression. And Dave Pensado still to this day goes, dude, how the hell did you come up with that shit? I said I didn't have anything. I just thought about it and I did it. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, throw it out. It's no big deal. But that's what I wanted to do for engineers, to give them a balance. Like I fell in love with Slate Digital. I got rid of my microphones and I love the Slate microphone. It is one of the flattest microphones that's out. It's flat as hell. And I use that on everything. And I don't even use the emulation. No, it's really good. It's the thing about it is that you have to. I feel that you have to use their mic pre and come out of it line and then go into line in. That's my thing. But having that, I mean, Cruz, between him and Mishka, Cruz was the one to say, "Yo, I use that all the time." I said, "Yeah, I got it." Because it's, mind you, I haven't really been working with too many artists except for like production wise, not cutting wise. Man, brother, that shit sounded amazing. It sounds like a really expensive microphone. You'd be surprised. And cutting is a whole different world, though. Cutting's a different world. Not auto tuning, just cutting. That's oh my god. Hey, have you checked out the Metatune yet?
Oh yeah, I love it. My favorite thing.
Wow.
You know the bottom left corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was showing somebody. He said, Jean, you serious? I said, dude, there's the Jello effect. Yo. But tell me that was ingenious to see the heat. You know what? That's it. There it is. Done. Well, we missed the note. Put it back in there. That was genius. I thought that was genius. Genius.
Super genius. And
Mhm.
the Slate microphone, that's one of my favorite microphones too. Like anybody who's like, man, should I go buy this Neumann TLM 103? I'm
Nope.
like,
Too
if you
bright.
have the right setup for it, maybe. Or you could go spend
There it is.
500 on the Slate microphone and have the whole
Dude.
setup right there in your hands, you
I
know?
had this art. I had this artist PJ, and PJ is an amazing songwriter and an amazing artist. So underrated. She came in, John Marie, let me hear this. Give me a setup. So I let her sit in front of her because there's nothing on it. She goes, oh, I like the way this sounds on my headphones. She goes, what EQ did you put on me? I said, it's not. There's no EQ on there. And her face went, what? She got one because it sounds that good. And if you want to, you can use the emulation. But I think Slate told Mishka, me and Mishka did the same thing. He goes, dude, your mic sounds great as it is. And Steven Slate said, what are you talking about to Mishka? I said, dude, I totally agree. It's flat mic, amazing. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. It was actually really, really good. I use it on my wife's voiceover all the time because she's an actress, and she does, to make some money. She does voiceovers, and they even asked me, goes, well, your husband's an engineer, so he knows what he's doing. I said, she's cutting it. She's cutting it, and amazing, amazing. It's simple, simple.
Wow. So cool, man. Super, super, super gems. And I think the biggest thing is just hearing it from you, I think solidifies for any level of experience that you can do this. Put your mind.
Yeah, yep. It, if you do it for the right reasons, it'll come back to you by tenfold. And you know what? No one has the right answer. This just works for me. And if you want to take those ideas and put it to your process, that's the most important things. Because I would never tell anybody they're wrong. I'd say, you know what? I don't do that, or I normally wouldn't do that. And it's like, maybe I should try it out and give it a whirl. I mean, I would never tell anybody that's wrong. I hear a lot of engineers, oh, I can't believe he's doing that. Why? There's no fucking rules to this shit. There's no rules. Take it from me. I got away with murder. I almost got fired 3 times on the Michael Jackson projects. One one thing because I made a mistake, and that was a perfect mistake. I was supposed to either encode or decode, and it became a trend. It was the Dolby effect. after I did it on the Dangerous record, and that became a fad. So you never know. You know, a simple accident can turn out to be something amazing. You know what I'm saying? Dare to be different. Dare to be different. No one has the right. I don't care who engineers out there right now, because they'll say, oh, I do this, I do that, I do this. No, man. I could give you some pertinent things that I particularly like. I can give you some compression ratios that I particularly like. But here's the thing: a compressor is a compressor is a compressor. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. They have different characteristics. It depends on what you want to go with. So if someone says, this is what I use. No, the fuck you don't. You change that shit all the time. You get bored of it because it didn't work out one time. So now you're gonna try something else. Or you have to use the two tech CLOB shit. Why? That shit's slow as hell. Why not use an LA2A? Why not use an 1176? Why not use a LA3A? Why not use the arouser? Why do you use a fatso? Why do you use a distressor? I love distressors. You know why? Because I like the way the fucking thing sounded. Very simple. Does it make me better? No, it worked for me because of my ears. It might not work for your ears. And that's something that people tend to forget. Like, I don't like the holier than thou people. There's a bunch of them in our industry, and I don't like that because it's not supposed to be. It's not about you, dick. It's it's like it's about building our community, and our music community is getting a little bit better, but it's still shitty. You know, it's like,
Facts, man.
yeah, yeah. I don't really give a fuck. You know me. It's like,
Hey,
So
I'm with you, and I see the vision. You know, you're the leader of the voice of engineers right now, and I, I'm
oh man,
I'm doing what I can to kind of grow the community, bring light to all these great people who have really paved the way. Because without Jean Marie, I think how mixes are done today
uh,
would be significantly different.
you're too kind. You're too kind. They're just mistakes that just worked. That's all I have to say. They were just mistakes that just worked. And um, I think what you mostly hear is the feel, the passion, and I think that means more to me, especially coming from you saying that. That means more to me than anything else, because it's like that's what we do it. We tend to forget when your name is on a record, it's there for life, and people don't realize that. You know, good, bad, or indifferent. You're in the, you call up your name on the Google now. You're like, wow, my name's there, and you can show that to your son, your daughter, your father, your mother, anybody, and you should take that and say, I'm doing something that I love and that I'm really passionate about. And I think because of our days and of all this Instagram stuff, we kind of lose sight of that. And what people don't really realize is that Instagram is a facade. It's just a publication of somebody that who they're not. Throwing all this stuff around. Yeah, maybe you might have it, but a lot of people don't, and they think that's the real them, and that causes a major problem. But what I try to do is, look, man, I came from shit, and it's like I'm doing it because I love what I do. It's not about the money for me. The money's gonna come. You could do a couple of indie sessions that could pay off some bills. It's about waking up in the morning saying, "Man, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to," like, I got up, like I told you, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning trying to do the stuff for the Insecure soundtrack because I want to do it. And I don't want to let down my peoples. I really meet I they're my muse.
The goat. I,
Mm.
I'm so grateful to have you here, man. So awesome to be able to share your story and just
Oh, my
document the
pleasure.
greatness that's happened over the course of past 3 decades
Three
almost now.
3 decades. Yeah,
Yeah,
three
like
decades.
crazy, man. It is about that time to move to the live Q&A and plugin giveaway. So if you are in the audience and you want to win some free baby audio plugins, make sure you start asking questions now. Make sure you stay tuned too, because we're about to ask the grand question to see who's gonna win this baby audio plugin bundle. Do you use baby audio plugins, John? Have you?
I have not. I have not yet.
Okay,
I got
I'm
some.
I'm gonna get you tapped in with them.
Oh, good. You know what? It's like Everybody said, "Damn, you got so many plugins. Why do you have so many plugins?" I said, "Because I want to make sure that the artist had where they left off at." So I get
Mhm.
all these plugins. I'm like, "Holy shit!" I'm like, "Jesus Christ!" So yeah, why not? Another one, sure. Oh wow, there's a lot of people on.
Yeah, there
I
was a
mean,
few people in the chat mentioned.
okay,
We got a question for you right now.
okay.
It comes from what his name is. It comes from Kevin. Kevin says, "What did you do on the Lil Flip song Sunshine?"
Mixed it,
And
mixed it.
how did that come about? Did Lil Flip contact you? Did the
No,
producer?
produce. No, there was actually the A&R. It was Max Goose that called me. He said, "John, I need this mix," and I said, "All right, let's go." And that was actually a dope ass song. And that was actually the girl who was singing that was actually signed to Blackground too. I forgot her name. Oh God, I forgot her name. She was so dope on that too.
That's
That's a good
awesome.
song, actually. Yeah, that was a good song.
Yeah, you know, Lil Flip's from Texas, I think. If he's not,
Texas, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's super prevalent out here. We love him in Dallas.
No, yeah, man. No, he was dope, man. That whole Southern sound was amazing.
I'm gonna leave the chat open for any more questions. In the meantime, we're gonna ask the grand question: see who wins these plugins. Um,
Okay.
you had mentioned earlier that you
Yeah.
assisted a big engineer when you had first started, and my question to win these plugins is: what engineer did Jean Marie Horvat assist when
Oh,
he
I
first
know.
started? We'll give him a little bit of time. I got the little tick 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 noise going, so
Any more questions? Anybody want me to answer any questions? Oh, shit.
we've got some viewers. They're just not being very active.
Come on, y'all. Ask me some questions. I love to answer them.
See if anybody answers this question. If they don't, we're gonna have to come up with a new
Move on to
question.
another. Yeah. Once you ask them, pick a number from 1 to 5.
Hey,
And just ask me what I'm thinking of.
that might be what it has to be. Um, I'm curious. Maybe you could tell us if there was one thing that you could do right now, like for your engineer or production career, whether that's work with a specific artist, whether that's like, you know, work on a certain film soundtrack, like what's one goal that you would love to achieve?
Building someone's career,
Interesting.
building them a career, not just the music, taking the music or acting and taking it to the next level. That's what I want to do. That's why I want to try to be a multimedia company, not a label, because labels don't mean anything no more. You know, I think building someone's career, manifesting something that's from nothing, taking someone's dream and really manifesting it for that person. That's that's what I'm striving for. If there's the only thing I can ask right now is that.
Mm, amazing. That's so awesome though. I think especially with all of the different multifaceted things you do, that's really the end goal to get to that level, you know, because you understand what it takes to really
Yeah.
be there. And I think so many people are quick to jump into like putting a title on them. I'm a vocal producer. I'm a this. I'm a whatever. But they didn't even master a tracking engine yet. So like,
Hmm.
mm, the best people have the most experience doing shit that they did not get paid to do.
But one thing that I regret the most is when Teddy would bring me to the meetings and not really understanding why he wanted me there. And almost it took me till I was when I first became a father after I got married. I said, "Son of a bitch." I said, "That's what Teddy wanted me to do. He wanted me to understand the paperwork. He wanted me to understand what they're thinking of. He wanted me to understand how the marketing is developed." And I think the biggest problem that I find right now is that the marketing sucks, and influencers are now the new marketing people. And I think that we as a collective need to understand that it's a different time age. You know, people can say, "Well, I don't TikTok." I don't TikTok. I love watching it. I
Mhm.
love watching it. I think it's the most fun thing to do. It's the most stupidest shit out there. I love it. But I think that's where I'm really starting to see, the depth of where this is going within the next 5 months to 5 years. Um, excuse me, instituting that in your everyday practice as a multimedia company.
Mhm.
What's it? Also, is it Teddy Riley? What does that say?
I think the question is, when you mix, I heard you say you take breaks. Or do you start with drums first, vocals, music? Just curious if you have any kind.
I do. My philosophy start with vocals first, and I'll tell you why. When I went by a production name called Riff Raff from '97 till about 2002, 2003. And the reason why I did that, I didn't want anybody to know I was a producer because I didn't want producers to feel like I was taking their job. That's not that. That was my side thing. So as a producer, I used to do remixes all the time, and at that time they would give us the acapellas. So I thought about this. When I started doing remixes, I didn't always start with drums. I started with music, but the first thing I got from the label was an acapella. So I said, wait a minute. I said, let me see if I'm doing remixes with an acapella, why can't I start the mix with the acapella? And my thought process was like this. In a speaker cone, things get to be taken up all the time. And if any engineers out there, they'll know this. I don't hear my vocals because the kick drum took up the most amount of frequency. So now your vocals start sounding thin. My philosophy is like this: we get those motherfuckers out of the way. We get the vocals out because they will take up the most frequencies. And then you start placing things around the vocals, and all of a sudden you have a mix. Not a kick drum, not a snare, and not an 808. You got a mix. And that's why when people break down my mixes, I was actually at 1500 Academy, and they heard the mix I did for Often. They want to know how the hell that my vocal sounded so great, and the 808, like that one section in the bridge went. I had all the room in the world because I didn't take up all that frequency. What took up the most frequency out of that speaker cone was the vocal. So
Wow.
I hope that answers your question.
Now, just to clarify, you said when you mixed often, that's often by the weekend.
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Such a great song too. I really think that you might be the guy breaking these artists into the industry because that's like the first big weekend song that I remember.
Honestly, it's so funny because when people actually work with me for the first time, they say, I don't go for that trick hat thing. I try to work with artists once in a while, once in a blue moon. Like I would always work with, like the artists that I would love to work with again. Two artists that I would love to work with again is Alicia Keys and Rihanna, two of the most amazing individuals ever. And Justin, I love Justin. He's great. But one of my dreams did come true. I went back to work with Robin Thicke again. And it never, 20 years later, it seemed like we never fell off. We had such a great record. We did such an amazing work. And that dude can hear gnats screwing. That's how good his ears are. I mean, literally, his ears are perfection. He used to drive me nuts. But he was right. And that's why I try to tell people you got to get out of your ego.
Man, I I'm just a sponge right now, absorbing
Yeah.
absorbing all the knowledge, man. No, that's why
Oh
you're here
man.
on Knowledge That Kills because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
giving us this great knowledge. Um, Nobody has answered the grand question to plugins. So
Does anybody know the question? What's your favorite
I'll
plugins?
ask it again. We got another question for you too. It
Mhm.
says favorite plugins for producing. They're talking maybe virtual.
Oh God, there's Native Instruments. Anything from Native Instruments. Anything from Output. My newest joy is The rolling cloud. The rolling cloud has all the keyboards that I did have and that I don't have or I never had. I think that's amazing. But I think also the concept of, what I've noticed a lot is that people are actually rewriting stuff that was already done in the 90s and the 80s and all like that. And I think that a lot of times that I think we're matriculating to the point that we're opening up palettes of the old to bring into the new. And those plugins that were from the past is really coming to fruition. Like there's this one plugin, y'all, that you should check out from the Rolling Cloud. It's called a Promar. Oh my God. Just the lead sounds on its own sounds so amazing. You start messing with that. It's so cool. But anything from Native Instruments, because when I started producing uh what's that say? Pro
Said
Promar.
Promar sounds dope.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. I love that thing. It's just so you gotta trick it. You gotta know how to see. A lot of times, when you start producing, I don't know how people start writing. See, there's a difference between writing and producing. So on the writing side, I start using that. Production side is where you start emulating things because a lot of times, a lot of people, when I give tracks out now, I don't do a full production. I don't. I try not to because I did that and it got me in trouble. So even when I did the Power Glide stuff, I gave Molly Mall just a basic idea. The production came when Sway Lee's vocals came in there, and boy, I started tricking the shit out of that damn thing. It was awesome. It was awesome to work with Molly Mall on that. It's awesome, and he just was so dope. It was so dope. It was like people let me do what I wanted to do, and it was all the stuff that Teddy that I basically learned from Teddy and Brian Michael Cox and Rodney Jerkins, all the producers. I was a sponge, and you borrow from different people to make your own sound. Um, and I didn't want to sound like everybody else on the radio, so that's why a lot of stuff that's on Powerglide is the Promar. Um, what else? The JP, the JXP shit. Oh my god! Because I wanted to, know why? Because I wanted to fuck around with it. I said, let me try. This sounds great. Like the bells and shit was awesome. It was awesome.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
man.
JXP, there you go.
The JXP is a classic for show.
There.
So I'm gonna re-ask the question for anybody who might not have heard the first time. To win these baby audio plugins, our question is, who is the first engineer that Jean-Marie Horvat assisted? Gonna give everybody another chance to answer that. If nobody comes up with the answer, we'll come up with a new question. Maybe our audience wasn't here then.
How many people are on there right now?
Right now we have 5 viewers, but it has been fluctuating between 10 and 5 for the whole stream.
Okay.
People have
We'll
been
get we'll pick a number from 1 to 10.
Perfect. Somebody said it wasn't Teddy Riley, was it?
Nope.
That's not the answer we're looking for, but it's in the right time frame.
Really in the right time frame with about 2 weeks difference.
Start naming some engineers, you might get lucky.
I'll give him a hint. No.
Not
No.
Pensado.
I'll give you a hint. Think of a car.
Somebody said damn so hard. Maybe they weren't paying attention. Oh, we got 2 answers at the same time. 3. Somebody said Maserati. 2 people said Maserati, and then one of them said Tony. One of them said Tony Maserati.
Whoever came up with first, I think they should get it, right? Close enough.
Okay, fair enough. So you think whoever said Tony or whoever said Maserati should?
Oh, don't put me on the spot with that. This is your show.
Okay, look. How about this? Can Joe Pear and DJ Umair both just hit me up on Instagram. My Instagram's located right here. Send me a DM. I'll hit y'all up. I'll double check that they both meet the requirements because they have to follow us both on Instagram, follow the Twitch channel,
Okay.
and then also know the answer. I'll do my research. We do now have 7 live viewers, so that's cool.
Okay, that's great. That's good. As long as we, as long as we touched one, that's that. If we touched five or whatever, that's the most important thing because that's how we start building the community. Is that you do a little at a time.
Somebody said, "Wow, you the greatest."
You're too kind. You're very too kind. I'm just very fortunate. I'm very very fortunate.
Um, I'm gonna give them another couple minutes to ask some questions, and then we'll probably
Yeah,
wrap this
please
up
do.
here.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Oh, look, we got another question. Jean Marie, what was your favorite guitar setup on any record?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a great one. Okay, what type of guitar? Electric guitar and acoustic guitar? And I just did guitars about 3.5 weeks ago.
What's up, Ryan?
What's up, Brian?
Um, Yo, Hits by Harv. Can you tell him if you want electric or acoustic? Somebody else says, where do you see it going in the next 5 years?
Oh, it's endless. I think it's endless. I think a lot of it because I have a 19-year-old. He's been listening to a lot. He's been listening to a lot of old school stuff. I think we're gonna start seeing more of a 70s, 80s revival. I think a lot of people are getting tired of the trap sound, the trap vibe. I think you're going to see a lot of more country going to be coming to full effect. I think trap is going to change, but it's going to take a label or a movement to change it. I think rock's going to be a big movement. I think rock music is going to be a, a a big catapult again. And Harv said electric. Okay, it depends, but I'm going to give you three setups. I personally like a on any of my guitar setup, and I was working with Zane Carney. I like a 57 and I like a Royer right side by side because I was working at East West Studios, an amazing studio, unbelievable. But here's the trick, guys: the sound from an amplifier doesn't come from the contact. The sound of the amplifier is 3 feet back. So that I used the 67, and that was the chunk, the tone is coming from that 67, but the additives, that little gliss, that little snap, is coming from the 57 and the Royer. Hope that answers.
That's some styles. He said, "Amen." um, DJ Umair asks, "Do you have any advice for an up and coming producer?"
Yes, keep writing.
Interesting.
Separate yourself as a producer and a writer. If you're writing a beat, you're not a producer. You're becoming a writer. A producer comes in, and I really mean this because I think the producer's role is going to get dwindled down because they're just becoming beat makers at that point. Become a producer. Become the person to say, "Yo, I want the vocals back." Well, we like what you did. Okay, that's cool. Let me put my sauce on it. Arrange the song the way they had it, and then go in there. The best advice is keep writing. Dare to be different. Change up a few things. Use your DAW as an instrument rather than a DAW.
Wow, gems. Um, Hits by Harv asks, "What was the thing that sparked the aha moment for you with reverb?"
Not using it, literally not using it, was the aha moment because I don't need reverb. If you heard any of the stuff that I did beforehand, the reverbs came from like the earlier stuff came from instruments, so that played a major part. And the aha for reverbs now is the dissipation of how it falls down and how each one works with each other. That came from listening to old school records and less is more. If you listen to Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, they didn't have that much reverb, but it sounded so big that you think there was a ton of reverb on there. It's very little. You can hear the decay, but that came from they didn't make a lot of reverbs back then, you know. So having less is more, and then having the understanding. It's like I want this reverb to do this, then I want this one to do that, and they all have a different scale effect, and that scale effect turns out like I want to use this. Trying to understand the biggest aha moment came from Pat Benatar's husband, Neil Giraldi, when I was reading an article because I couldn't stand reverb. It was always washing shit out. When he put a pre-delay on a long reverb and it gave you that definition of the vocal, but then all of a sudden it gave you the width of the reverb. So I used 125 millisecond to a long reverb, which would be a 140 plate. And that's how I got the aha moment as well, because I didn't have it. It came with it at the end. So not having it is what I'm talking about.
Wow. That's a real gem too, man. Um Somebody asks, are you summing before Pro Tools?
um, no, nowadays I start doing in the box, but I have been doing re-experimenting. Like when we did Often was the next to last song that I started summing everything out to the console, which was actually at that time I had a Sigma as well as the old Dre board. The studio actually got me Dr. Dre's old AWS console, which I really love. I don't like a lot of big things because we don't need that much no more. Less is more, I would say. Um, uh, so I don't sum that much. So if I do, I gotta sum everything out. I can't. You just can't just say stereo drums, stereo music, stereo background vocals, stereo. I gotta sum it out because now you're opening up a different can of worms. So you have to sum everything out, or a majority of it out. Like the percussion should come out because I can balance this differently. You know, because we're going through channels, and Pro Tools sounds different than Logic, than Nuendo or Cubase or Studio One, or because I use all those formats, by the way, guys. I use, I don't care what I use. I'll use a monkey wrench if I have to. So each one sounds differently. I was telling Killshot this, y'all, that I might do three mixes in three different formats of the same damn song, and then whatever feels right, I send it out to the clients. So it's all different. Everything's different, but for the majority thing, I don't sum out anymore. I'm starting to a lot more now because of the interest of uh, doing Atmos mixes. It's making me feel like I can really control things. I don't have to really supply myself to the labels. Even though it's spatial audio, it's really not Atmos. It's spatial audio, but it gives me the ability to separate things out the way I normally did, and that's what's great about having the Matrix. If I do work, because I do a lot of Atmos mixes in Nuendo, just out of quickness. Pro Tools is great, but I didn't have the Matrix at that time. So even with Matrix, you start separating it out in frequencies in different speakers. That's like doing a summing mix, almost like summing everything out. So I got the bug again to recalibrate the console and really start bringing it back to fruition and pulling out some gear out of the closet, as I call it, and really start bringing it back to fruition again. But mind you, when you start summing things, I think that using the Delta, the Sigma, which I heard that they don't make no more, um, gives you the ability to push envelopes onto into your DAW, coming out of the summing thing, because it has the headroom for it. The AWS doesn't have the headroom, so I have to start notching things down, which I'm trying to think about. Do I go down to a -10 box without sacrificing it. It almost seems like when you start lowering stuff, you start losing the bits and the depth, and it starts becoming air and noise. So I'm trying to come up with a concept that I can just drop everything down and still have the impact like a tape machine.
Looks like we're getting some new viewers still. We're up to 10 live viewers right now.
Not at all.
Let's see. It's by Harv said fucking gas, and then put mind blown emoji. You're answering all the questions for him. DJ
Good.
Romero says gems with a bunch of gems. Let's see. Our next question is, what is the secret sauce for layering vocals?
Panning,
Interesting.
panning and noting. Also, I'll give you another one. If somebody's singing up here and you want to bring it down here, make sure you have one that's a monotone, like no 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 no. If it's monotone, like that's your steady note, it's going to get you the girth. That's something that has not been done in such a long time. I'm doing that with my artists right now, and people are saying, "Yo, what the fuck?" And you don't have to layer so many different notes. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, that's a gem for sure.
That's a musician's gem. You know what I'm saying? That's a musician talking. Remember, we're all musicians here. We're all striving to make great music.
So tell me, if you have your one mono vocal, are you typically doing pairs to pan left and right in there, or
I usually depends on the singer. I usually do four to eight tracks of like the main, mid, and harmony. The different harmonies. But the mono one is straight up like that would be like if say for instance if I do a pair of fours, I would do straight up the middle and the last two in the wide as as the monotone one. Just the thickness of it, and just sit that right underneath the bed, and you can feel the girth come out.
wow, we got a lot of questions coming in.
Good. This is what we need. There we go.
um, the next one is, who are your favorite producers to collaborate?
I don't collaborate with a lot of producers for some odd reason. I don't. I wish I did. I think the only collaboration that I do is, with producers is when I mix, and I take a different hat approach with that. I'm a mixer at that point. I'm not writing or producing with them. But the best person that I produce with, he's an amazing producer, songwriter. His name is Bloke. That's the one I gravitate to the most. He's amazing. I love him to death. Badass, badass, man. He wrote Dark Side of the Moon on Lil Wayne's record. He's just an amazing. He's an artist as well, and he's a great songwriter. But he's also an amazing producer. He's so great. He did something for me for a song called Fairy Tale. Um, he wrote the lyrics to it, wrote the melodies to it. He's such an amazing songwriter. But I gravitate to him. That's who I gravitate to.
That's awesome, man. I think songwriters are kind of not exactly the same, but similar to engineers in the fact of they play such a pivotal role. They don't really get that like spotlight often as.
Right. No, they don't. And a lot of times songwriters come in and they start reconstructing the track. That's where I think that producers are going to get pushed out at some point. That's what people don't understand. It's like they have to start producing it and really ask really ask how to be more a part of it, because at the end of the day they're just looking at a check, and they're going to say, okay, let's get this dude where a producer. And the reason why I'm saying this, the producer's worth can be a lot more than $2,500 or $1,500. It could be like I'm trying to build our community up. Rodney Jerkins used to get 75 to $150,000 for his track as a producer. He was songwriting, also producing, not paying for the studio time. That was that back then. Those things are gone, but we can't. We don't have to say that we don't get 75,000, but we could try to get $5,000 to $15,000. And mind you, guys, that is your producer's advancement. That is not your check. That means you have to pay back. So you're not going to get your just desserts until you recoup that money. What people tend to forget about producing is that when they give you money, it's just a producer's advancement. That's it. That is not like your money. Oh, yeah, I got 15K for the track. Okay, now we have to get back that 15K so you can make your other money that you should be getting. So understand the one thing I can tell people that I'm striving for is education. And all the people that worked at me with me at the studio in North Hollywood, at Muse Studios, they say, "Hey, Jean, I'm going to this school." I said, "You know what school you should go to? You should go to school. You should take the course at UCLA and understand the law, understand what you're getting paid for, what you're not getting paid for. What they won't tell you is what you're worth." And here's the thing: I understood exactly why Max Martin and Dr. Luke only asked for $30,000 for their tracks back then, and they could have asked for a whole bunch. They got the lion's share because they had the biggest hits. They got the lion's share of the points, right? Then they took 30K, right? Simple 30K. So they get recouped. But here's the catch: because they took a small amount, they got paid from record one. They don't get paid recoupment because they had so many hits. They demanded that in their reports. So they got paid from record one. Normally, producers don't get paid until the album's recouped, which could be doomsday at this point in time. So that's what I'm trying to explain to producers now how things work. Yeah, I got a $2,500 check. Okay, that's how much you're worth at that point. Get your money. Don't get, but understand that you're not going to get your back end points at all because you have to recoup everything, or the artist has to recoup, and Lord knows how much they spend on it. So understand the paperwork and how you can benefit off the paperwork. A lot of people don't understand that page one doesn't always correlate to page 15. So that's something to understand. That's another gem, and that's now that's on the writing producing end.
That was like 20 gems in one, man. I hope you know, and I love that you're here sharing the knowledge that kills, because that's what we do it for.
Yeah,
People who are out there trying to obtain the recipe, it the results they're looking for. Because I think everybody kind of has this idea of how they want their food to taste, but
mhm.
they don't realize that it gets boring if it tastes the same every single
Absolutely. And sometimes, sometimes garlic pepper salt is better than regular salt and pepper. You know what I'm
act.
saying?
Um,
There was one, someone asked about negotiation. You do not negotiate for yourself.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on that?
Don't be the dick. Let the other dude be the douchebag. You be the creator. You could be a dick behind the scenes. Don't let the labels control you, because they'll easily say, then you're not worth something. You get somebody, a good lawyer or a good manager that knows the industry well enough to say, he's worth this much. Don't fuck up. Don't fuck around like that. Don't start negotiating stuff unless it's a friend of yours. Don't start negotiating stuff because you don't know what you're negotiating for. So get somebody to understand the industry that they can get you the best deal possible for you at that time, especially up and comers, because you could be signing your masters away. You could be signing all your publishing away. You don't know. Remember, page one sometimes doesn't correlate to page 15.
Mm. And the person that said that said, "That's a motherfucking gem." um, we've got a few questions I want to touch back on.
Okay.
The one comes from Richie Flow. It says, "What's the most amount of tracks you have ever mixed, and how did you handle?"
Ooh, I get a boatload of tracks with vocals, especially the vocals. Man, drop that shit down. If Here's what pisses me off about engineering. It's like if you got a shitload of background vocals that are doing the same notes, drop it down to two tracks. That would show your engineering capability. So when I tell people, yo, you should really use that kit again, it's like, so I had, I didn't have a Jacob Collier track, but I did have a track that had like well over 300 tracks, well over, and they were all vocals, and I had to drop it down. And a lot of times, sometimes less is more because became messy, and what my job was to unmessify it. So I at that time it was actually a Ricky Martin session. It was they said, Jean, what did you do? I said, I went back to the original song and I broke it down. And they said, that's the most amazing mix that we heard. They kept adding stuff when they all just needed to do was balance stuff. So there was like well over 300 tracks, 4 different sessions. Put this there, put that there. It was just a mess. So I went back to the original and I took everything out and dropped everything around.
Wow. Um, Not to skip the questions, but somebody said you mean like some the vocals down to 2 tracks?
No, each note to 2 tracks. Like if you have the same notes doing the same damn thing, drop it down to 2 tracks. Someone told me. Sorry, this flies all over the place. Someone told me they asked me this. They they asked me go. No, they didn't ask me. Goes, yeah, we left it for you to figure it out. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? It's the same fucking vocals. It's the same damn thing. Just drop it down. It makes sending shit out a lot easier and to download quicker. But
Right.
it also shows how much you're worth because I would step up from and say, "That's a great engineer. You need to keep him in the pocket, and in fact, you need to give that dude a raise."
Wow. Gems for sure.
Yeah.
Um, it's by Harv asks, what's the last artist that made you feel like you were mystified by music?
Ooh. Oh God. Claro. I didn't work with her. The Claro record was amazing. Um, Alexa, my artist that I'm working with right now, amazing. She's like making me write records again. And then there's a new artist from New York. Her name is, oh my God, if I oh because I'm still working out the deal with her. What is her name? Story. She's from Newark. Bad man, bad. Uh, but like the last artist that really made me like really love shit. Now I'm gonna say this nicely was Summer Walker before the hit records. Like The Grave was what she did back then made me say, "Oh my God, there's hope for music." You know what I'm saying? That's something that I was really happy about. You know, when she first came out, um, I think she was great. I think her production team at that time was amazing, also because they were doing some different shit.
Super cool. Um, Someone asks, when you sit down to make a song, how do you approach an track?
Fiddling.
Hmm.
I start fiddling around. I start bringing up sounds that I said, "Oh, what the hell is this doing?" And I just go through patches and I say, "Ooh," and then all of a sudden you catch that vibe and say, "Ooh." Or if I'm just fucking around with the guitar, or if I'm coming out with a piano thing, that's when it starts to come. You know what I'm saying? It starts really coming.
Um, Daniel Maybon asks, on a past IG live, you mentioned that you did an 808 last on track for the low end, which was a
Always,
gem. Mind blown.
always.
So my question is, if you did a rock mix, would you probably take a similar approach to the low end, or would you probably handle it different?
Handle it differently. Handle it differently. Okay, mind blow jam again. Okay, here's the thing. When I would do the same thing with the vocals, start with the vocals first, and then the next last thing I would do is the bass, as I always do. But with the drums, that's the difference. I don't start with contacts. I start with the room or the overheads first. Then go because that is the tone of the drum, and then that goes into the snare, the hi hat, and the kick drum. And the last thing I do is the bass because I can put the knock in the bass that's missing on the kick drum. There you go.
This is probably going to be my last call for questions, as well as um, still waiting to get a DM from the plugins. If I don't get a DM before we go, we're going to ask a new question and give everybody here a new opportunity. Um, DJ Umer asks, what do you think about NFTs and its potential for me?
Undecided.
Interesting.
Undecided. Undecided yet. It's still coming together. Undecided. Can't I can't call it.
I I think personally it's a little bit of a fad, but I think if you get on it right now, you could make a lot of money just because, or potentially the
Right, right, right.
um
I still yeah.
um somebody said what was the question for plugins. I did just get a DM on Instagram. As long as
Okay,
they follow all of the rules, they're gonna win them.
okay.
Um, but Daniel, shoot me a DM. But we'll discuss some things. Jean Marie, it's getting to that time, man. I appreciate you
Yeah,
so
it's getting
very
dark,
much.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's getting dark.
this has been
I,
an amazing episode, man. I hope you know that
thank
you've
you.
inspired and really helped so many
I hope so.
people. This is all gonna get, clipped up for the Instagram and stuff too. So you're really gonna make a big impact on the engineering community, and it's just you're already
I
doing it,
hope
man.
so.
Like,
Well, before we end, listen, y'all. I know you probably got a lot of questions that you want to ask. Just DM me. I'm easy, man. I'm not a bougie motherfucker. I'm as real as you can get. I don't go with that bougie shit. I answer everybody's questions.
amazing. Um, Someone said, thank you so much for coming on. And then they said, the man in the mix.
Yeah, the man in the mix.
Cool. Well, hey, listen, John. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, man. We're gonna cue the sound effects. Everybody give John a round of applause. Thank you so much. You're always welcome back on the show. We hope to have you again
Anytime.
very soon, man.
Anytime. Anytime. You just reach out to me, Kills.
Absolutely, man. And hey, if you need anything, I'm always open to help you, man.
Thank you, my brother. Just stay
Super
focused, y'all, and just you know what? Before I go, make sure you smile and love one another. That's the most important thing. And take your mixing or take your production as a lifestyle, not as a job. That's it. That's all I got for you.
amazing. Real quick before you go, do you want to tell people where they can find you on social media, or if there's any other
Yeah.
things you want to plug for yourself?
Uh, Keep an eye out. Follow my girl Alexa LCW, Alexa Siwi. Please follow her. You can always look at my website, jeanmariehorvat.com. You can always ask me questions at JM Horvat on Instagram. I'm always around. I'm always on TikTok watching some foolishness, so you'll probably see me out there trolling people. But other than that, no. Other than that, yo, let's just go. Let's just build our community.
Awesome. Hey, thank you again. Everybody's
All
clapping
right,
for you. You're the GOAT.
all right, brothers.
Hey,
And
have a good
biscuit.
night. We'll
All right
talk to
now.
you soon, buddy.
Bye.
And for everybody here now, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in to episode 9 of Knowledge That Kills. We have another special week next week. Because you know what's happening? Some of y'all might know what's happening. We got DJ Swivel joining us for episode 10 of Knowledge That Kills. DJ Swivel is a producer, engineer in our community. He also is a plugin creator as well as a pioneer for us engineers. With that being said, we're going to be giving away 10 plugins with DJ Swivel. That's right. 10 of DJ Swivel's plugins are going to be given away on my live next week. That is November 18th. Make sure that you tune in next week. We've got some super special things happening. If you're not familiar with DJ Swivel, go check him out. Super dope. Super goat. I want to give another special thank you to Jean Marie for joining us. It's amazing to have people who have made such an impact in our industry come on the show, really give back and provide the knowledge that kills. I'm your host, Killshot. I appreciate everybody who's been here, and we will see you next week. Peace. Out of here. Oh yeah. We about to go raid Timberland. Here we go, y'all.